The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Enterprise first season episode, Fusion. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Stika. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to join the StarQuest fan club by texting StarQuest, all one word, to 66866. That's StarQuest to 66866. And I want to tell you about another show on the network that I'm sure you'll enjoy called American Catholic History. In about 20 minutes every week, Tom and Noel tell us a story from American Catholics and throughout the history back to 1530 something or other, I think is the range. And it's not just saints and the holy people. It's all kinds of Catholics, all kinds of stories. Check it out wherever you find fine podcasts or at sqpn.com/history. But today we're talking about this Enterprise story, Fusion. And Jimmy, can you give us a recap of this episode?
This week, the Enterprise helps a bunch of Vulcan space hippies repair their beater spaceship. While that's happening, in our A-plot, one of the Vulcan hippies, Talaris, starts trying to get T'Pol to turn on, tune in, and drop out of the whole Vulcan repressed emotion scene. He wants her to stop meditating for a while so she can stop being so uptight and repressed man and have more trippy psychedelic dreams. He then tempts her with the forbidden narcotic of a mind meld, but as they're grooving together in the mind meld, T'Pol gets cold feet and calls it off. Only Talaris is so into it, he's having a hard time realizing that no means no, and she has to push him away. Meanwhile, in our B-plot, the guy who keeps the Vulcan space buggy running, a hip young dude named Cove, has been having generation gap troubles because his old man is like such a square and they haven't spoken in years, man. But his dad is dying, so Archer tries to talk Cove into giving his old man a jingle, collect and everything, only Cove won't hear of it. However, Trip talks him into it, and Cobb's dad tells him he's just had a life-saving operation. Unfortunately, he may not be the only person who needs one, because that too forceful mind meld that Talaris did on T'Pol has left her in sickbay. She could have suffered neurological damage if it had gone any further. So, Archer tells Talaris and his deadbeat space buddies to hop in their dune buggy and hit the road. The end.
Back to the Garden of Eden.
Back to the 60s.
That's a much better take on this episode than I had, but
that makes it a lot more entertaining. Well, one of the things about this episode is it plays on our expectations. So for so long, Archer and the crew have been criticizing and rejecting Vulcan aloofness and logic and the lack of emotion. And so I think as the audience, we've been primed to sympathize with these more human-like Vulcans. And then they flip the tables on us by making at least Talaris a bad guy because of it. What do you guys think of that?
No, I agree completely. And of course, we got one character that shows up for like 5 minutes, Taven, who's supposedly the head of this thing, and he's there and gone.
He vanishes.
Yeah, it was weird.
Taven is the captain of the Vulcan space beater.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. I commented where, I think Jimmy took a better take on me. I looked at this episode as basically a metaphor for manipulation and abuse leading to rape. I mean, that's basically what the whole Talaris plot thread played out as. And then, you got the nice Cove storyline underneath it.
Right.
Yeah, I think structurally Cove is meant to be there to show us these Vulcans aren't all bad.
Right.
Whereas Talaris is there to be bad. But in watching Talaris, I could see where this is going. And I wanted to watch for signs of manipulation. And is he really manipulating her, or is he genuinely trying to be helpful based on his beliefs? And I think it's the latter. I think he's genuinely trying to be helpful. He is, he is a Vulcan space hippie.
Right.
that believes in mind melds and stuff like that, which was not typical of Vulcans in this era.
Mm-hmm.
And but he, up to the point where they're actually in the mind meld, I don't sense him manipulating her. I think he's really trying to be helpful. But he is so into it when it happens that he has trouble stopping.
Yeah.
But up to that point, it's like, we don't have to do this. It's only if you want to. And she's like, and he points out, there can be problems and things like that. And she's like, do it.
Mm.
Right.
And so I didn't think he was all bad, the way he's written. Now, maybe they meant him to be a master manipulator who is trying to rape her, but I didn't get that.
I think go ahead.
I was gonna say, maybe it's more just how the actor played the character, because I saw him. He's just creepy throughout. I mean, this wasn't like, wow, man, it's so groovy. It was like Creepsville, big time.
They also have a bad makeup job on him, where like the edges of his face are green and the center of his face is red, and he does look creepy. And he does have this creepy vibe. I mean, he's clearly going to be the problem person. But I do like the conflict about these with T'Pol, about these Vulcans. When she has a name for them, they're called Vatashkatur, which she translates as Vulcans without logic. And when she realizes what they are, she's of course very cold towards them, and she tells them, she tells Archer that what they're doing is dangerous. They're trying to integrate their emotions, and they say, we don't reject Sirac's teachings, we reject their interpretation. So these are kind of Vulcan Protestants. Or fill in the denominational names as you please. This is a dispute not about the base material, but about its interpretation.
Sure.
And they want to integrate logic and emotion. And T'Pol says, this is dangerous. This has been tried by multiple other people, and they have all failed. So it's like our emotions are just too strong. There's no way to integrate them, and it's going to lead to problems. And she has a line I really like where she tells Archer, they may smile and eat chicken, but that doesn't mean that, that they're great. And she's right. This is what, I mean, the episode doesn't prove that everyone's always going to fail, but her prediction comes true, that their attempt, or at least Tolaris's attempt, to integrate emotions and logic does not work. His emotions take over and lead him to cross a line.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that actually, the eating chicken thing was, that was one of those early indicators where they're trying to show us these are not your typical Vulcan, because Vulcans, we've been told, especially in this series, are vegetarians. The idea of eating meat is disgusting to them. And then Tavin at dinner with Archer and T'Pol and Tucker is like, what's that there? Chicken marsala? I'll take some of that. And which hard to blame him. Chicken marsala is awesome.
Yeah.
But Tavin, by the way, is played by Robert Pine, who's a frequent Star Trek guest star. But he's also the father of Chris Pine.
It was okay.
Who eventually is Kirk in the 2009 reboot. So I just thought that was kind of
if you want to go way back, he was the sergeant on Chips.
That's right, he was. Oh man, that takes me back. And then Tolaris is played by Enrique Murciano, who's been in a bunch of different things, but he's a decent actor. I've always enjoyed his stuff. Now, for the Vatashkatur, the Vulcans without logic, Cybok, kind of like that. Yeah, I mean,
only Cybok isn't around yet.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to comment about how, it's been tried and failed, like, say, trying to find God in the middle of the galaxy.
Right. Now, within the Star Trek universe, it didn't happen yet, but Star Trek V came out before Enterprise,
well before
right?
this.
Yeah,
well
that's
before
right.
this.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So maybe in the mind of the writers, they were thinking about that. I do like Cove at lunch with Tucker. He starts asking about human reproduction.
Yeah, Cove is a lot of fun. Is it true that you mate year round with any of them you choose?
Yeah.
and that you eat 6 meals a day, and that you sleep for more than half of the day?
Right. I mean, no, we're not hobbits. We don't eat 6 meals a day, but also
some dieting advice says to, and it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. And what was the other thing? Was the football? where they try to kill the quarterback.
Yeah.
I love how we come in on that line and it's like Trip is saying, okay, no, I'm serious. He's really not trying to kill the quarterback.
even as, people, when the quarterback is having to scramble, people are shouting, kill him, but it's not literally kill him.
Yeah. It reminded me of an old Andy Griffith routine from before the Andy Griffith show, when he was just a comedian. And he made records. He made comedy records like a lot of comedians did. And he had a routine called What It Was Football. And he plays in this routine, he plays a character who is rural, from a rural background, has never seen a football game before, and goes to see one, buys his big orange drink, and sits down to watch it, and then tries to describe football to someone who's never heard of it before.
I think I have heard this one before. Yeah.
Oh, I have to
long time
find
ago.
that.
It's
He's like he misidentifies like the referee because of the striped black and white shirt as like a convict running around on the field.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, I mean, I love that, like the cultural like misconceptions and myths that you might have about a culture you're not familiar with, and we have that here on Earth, where people like have ideas about Asian cultures or African cultures that we haven't got a lot of experience with. So that was a fun little bit. Now one thing I thought was very interesting was Archer at one point early on starts pushing T'Pol on the new Vulcan philosophy, basically telling her, you need to be open to the heretics' ideas, which I found kind of pushy and insensitive. Like
I don't remember that. I remember him telling her she ought to spend time with them.
He actually uses the line, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
I took that not as much as a reference to their beliefs as just, they can be reasonable people, maybe.
I guess.
I took it more of their, being open to what they have to say, what their beliefs are.
Right.
Which I found kind of ironic, because how many times have they had the discussion where Archer's opposed to some alien species beliefs or structures, and she tells them to have an open mind. I felt that was kind of a bit of an irony,
right,
the tables type of deal.
Right. Yeah.
He's also so sorry for the science update, but he's also so jazzed because he gets to go in this episode to see something called the Arachnid Nebula.
Yep.
Which he would like look at on the, I had these Time Life books that my parents bought when I was a kid, and one of them was about space, and I still have a copy of it. And so he has the same thing. He's got a 22nd century Time Life book, I guess, about space, and it's got the Arachnid Nebula on the cover. And now in this episode, they get to go see it and explore it. And he's so jazzed about it. And they're telling us it is 8, because they want us to know how impressive it is. It is 8 billion kilometers in diameter. And I'm going, that's so special because our solar system is 287 billion kilometers in diameter. So our solar system is 36 times bigger than this thing.
Yeah.
It's not. In fact, the real Arachnid Nebula must be bigger. I would think.
There isn't one. They made it up.
Oh, they did make it up. Okay, so and any nebula that you could photograph from Earth would have to be much bigger than 8 billion kilometers across, I would think.
Well, with current telescopes, but
Okay. The other thing that got me was like it looked exactly, with the naked eye, exactly the way it looked on the cover of the book. And this is the thing that Star Trek does all the time, which is a lot of the pictures we have of Nebula are false color images that they've kind of jazzed up a bit so that we can actually see what's there. And so it wouldn't look exactly the same, but that's okay.
Well, it's almost as if they took the CGI and just made a print of it and put it on the front of the book or something.
Almost. Well, the other thing I like is it's his childhood textbook in which he wrote on the inside, property of Admiral Johnny Archer, which I thought, it's very cute.
Yeah. I was distracted by, one of the themes in this episode is food.
Yeah.
Because, it's because we need the characters to be talking to each other. So let's put them in the cafeteria. And they can be having food and talking about food, and the Vulcans can be trying food. So Cobb is like saying, Talaris is saying, Mr. Tucker told me I need to try pizza and stuff like that. Yeah. But there's a scene where T'Pol is having hot mint tea. and Talaris wants to try it. And so she gives him a cup of it or a glass of it. And he's like, this isn't a Vulcan thing. And she's like, well, they have a very limited selection of Vulcan beverages. And all that's fine, except for hot mint tea. Really? Hot? I mean, I know mint tea. I make mint tea, and I can assure you that mint tea is best served cold.
Uh-oh. This is us heathen northerners who tea is hot unless you make it as sun tea in the few days in the summer when it actually gets sunny enough for that. No.
Well, mint tea is definitely a dish best served cold. I mean, you use hot water to make it. I'll have a pitcher, and I'll put the mint tea bags in it, and then I'll fill it up with hot water. It doesn't have to be boiling, but just hot. And then I stick it in the fridge.
Yeah.
And it is delicious when it comes out
Nice.
Cold.
I will have some of my right now, some of my decaf Lipton non-mint iced tea, but I married a Texan, so I drink iced tea.
I mean, I'm from Texas. I drink iced tea too, but but mint tea is exactly what it says. It's not. It does not use actual tea leaves. It uses mint leaves.
Okay.
And so it tastes it's not just mint flavored regular tea. It is mint. And you can also get peppermint tea, which is peppermint leaves. And they have this very intense mint taste, and it's really good cold.
And that becomes a point for Talaris, where he kind of says, that's not a very Vulcan kind of drink that you're drinking there. And he that's his in for kind of saying to Paul, like, look, you're already taking a step in our direction with being on board this ship and being exposed to humans and their emotions for almost a year now. So, maybe you should experiment, hey, don't meditate tonight. See where that leads you. And then it ends up with this thing that this show keeps doing, which is this very sexualization of the Jolene Blaylock. And like, we didn't really need that. It was weird. Now, were they trying to say that he was influenced, like he was projecting into her mind these images, or did this come up on her own?
No, he has to ask her, even after she's had the first set of dreams, he has to ask, what did you dream about? He doesn't know.
Okay.
Well, and she said that most of the dream was when she had snuck out of the compound, the Vulcan compound in San Francisco, and went to this jazz club, whatever the music was.
Yeah, it was jazz. And the name of the club was Fusion, which apparently gives us the name of the episode.
Yeah. and so this was a dream of something she had experienced, and then I guess her subconscious, however you want to explain it, overlaid the sexual aspect with Talaris.
Okay. The sort of forbidden fruit aspect of because she's uncomfortable about having transgressed by going to this jazz club and experiencing the emotion of, because jazz music is a very emotional kind of music that's with a lack of external logic.
Jazz.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's kind
and
of
that's why I called it out as supposedly a jazz club. That wasn't good jazz.
It was kind of bland jazz. But like I get where they're going with this, because jazz is, it doesn't have an external logic to it. It's kind of chaotic a bit.
Sometimes.
Can be. Right. That's a simplistic look at jazz itself. But so she experiences the emotion of it, and that was a sort of forbidden thrill that she had that she's trying to repress. And so he finds this chink in her armor and starts digging, and that's how he gets in. So I thought that was interesting in of itself. I mean, that aspect of the script. I mean, I like the idea of exploring to Paul this Vulcan among humans, and this idea of, I mean, this is what Star Trek has always done. This was Spock. This was Data. This, that we keep doing this, where we bring this outsider who's got a different outlook on the world and the universe.
Neelix.
Neelix? Well, yeah. You had to bring that up, but sure, Neelix.
So this leads to what I thought was a deficit in this episode, which is the Vulcan acting by the guest Vulcans.
Yeah.
To Paul, so Jolene Blaylock really does communicate I am a non-human and I'm repressing my emotions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, she does that effectively. She doesn't come across as a normal person. And the guest actors have a challenge of, we're Vulcans, so we're not human, but we're supposed to have at least broadly achieved a balance with our emotions that apparently has taken us years for us to develop. The problem is they act like they're totally comfortable in their human skins.
Mm.
You
Right.
know, they're acting way too human on the subtle level.
Right.
I have in my note, one of my first notes, Vulcan Captain, very human acting.
Mhm.
And the acting that they're doing does not convey any sense of alienness. And what they needed to do for all of these Vulcans is find a way to communicate, I am an alien at the same time as I am open to experiencing a wider range of emotions. And they
Mhm.
didn't do that. They come across as much too human to my mind.
Yeah.
They should have done something more like, let's find something that was particularly Romulan, say, even in TNG or DS9, and bring some of it. Now, they shouldn't act like Romulans because that's different, but bring some of that over. But yeah, I agree. I think they should have had a little bit more, less hippie human.
Like the female Romulan captain in the second Romulan episode ever, where
Yeah.
she is, or Mark Leonard in the first Romulan episode ever, where
Mhm.
they
Right.
do communicate. They have this exotic feel to them that isn't just totally normal.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I agree with that. One thing I thought was interesting, the design of the Vulcan ship, the interior of it, looked a lot like that Vulcan ship on Lower Decks. So it seems to me that Lower Decks went to this episode to find out what does a Vulcan ship's interior look like, because
Probably.
we've never seen an interior to this scale of a Vulcan ship before. So
Yeah, I kind of noticed that center console kind of looked like the one that the one of the lower deckers was working on.
right.
The Mariner lower decker was working on. Kind of looked
Yeah.
similar.
Yes, I thought that was kind of a nice callback that they did there. So mind melds were something. Did we haven't seen mind melds in Enterprise before then, right? This was the first mind meld in Enterprise.
This was the first, because they basically said that it was something that was outlawed. It was no longer allowed
Okay.
at this point.
And did they bring them back in Discovery, which postdates this within the timeline? We see some mind melds.
Sarek is mind melding all over the place. in
right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's after the Vulcan Reformation, which
Yeah.
happens at the end in season 4 of Enterprise,
Right. It's been
when
so long.
they
Yeah.
rediscover a Katra arc of Surak that sheds more light on his teachings.
Right. That's right. I forgot all about that. It's been 20 years since I saw that. And then at the end, there's this moment where T'Pol and Archer have this. Archer confronts Talaris and basically forces his hand and shows that, you're a lot more violent and less, peace-loving hippie than you claim to be.
I was kind of intrigued by the acting in that scene because it's not clear at the beginning of the scene what Archer's going to do.
Mhm.
And he, at the beginning of that scene, is acting very friendly. He's his typical Jonathan Archer self, like nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't know about this acting choice, because if he was really, I'm seeing Scott Bakula's acting range here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of his acting choice, to be that positive at the beginning of the scene when his first officer, who he cares about, and unfortunately we later learn that he's secretly in love with,
Mhm.
is lying in sickbay after what he would perceive as virtually a telepathic rape.
Right.
Why are you being so friendly to this guy at the beginning of the scene?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But by the end of it, you see that his aim was to subtly provoke him into this angry attack.
You could have provoked him quicker.
Yeah.
Or as he regrets, he should have maybe provoked him a little less because he didn't anticipate getting thrown across the room. But he did have a phase pistol ready. But I liked. I mean, the actor Enrique Marciano did a pretty good job of showing that anger that rises up in Talaris and becomes very menacing in that scene, which was pretty good.
And I think that, I mean, I have some sympathies for, for all kinds of different cultural trends and stuff. But one of the things that was characteristic of the hippie movement was a form of narcissism, where it's all about pleasure and, I'm going to reject society's norms and I'm just going to live for now and have the pleasure with these drugs and this free sex and stuff like that. And that narcissism would lead to people getting hurt. People would OD and they'd get raped and things like that. And that's what we're playing with here, essentially. He gets to Paul high and into a situation that starts out consensually and then turns non-consensual, and he doesn't stop.
Yep. Right.
And Archer is in the position of, I'm the dad, and you, space hippie, have just done this to my daughter.
Right.
But it plays out. I don't know how much of this the authors of the episode intended, but it really does play out well through a late 60s kind of interpretive lens.
Yeah.
You can imagine exactly this scene playing out where a guy who is maybe, he tells himself he's well-meaning as a hippie. He's just trying to expand this girl's mind and help her feel better and explore new possibilities. But dad is like, look at what happened.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's because of the guy's own selfishness.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, as I think about it, like I've probably seen similar plots play out in a bunch of different, TV dramas, similar, like to that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's true. I want to talk briefly about Cove and Tucker, the Vulcan engineer whose dad is dying, and Tucker's trying to convince him, like, look, talk to your dad before he dies because you'll have regrets. You will, and that's an emotion you really don't want to explore.
And you're too new at this emotion business to have serious experience with regret yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the ways he tells him this story. First, he asks him, do Vulcans dance? I'm going to guess they probably have maybe some sort of ritualized movement, but they probably don't.
Which Cove acknowledges we have ritual dances.
Yeah. And then so Trip tells him this story of this girl 20 years prior as a teenager probably, where a girl he wanted to ask to dance and missing his opportunity. I think Cove totally misses the point. Like, So what are you telling me this for? But it was a cute scene, and it eventually gets across to Cove, and we find out that he does talk to his dad, and he's happy to have done so.
I like the engineer bonding between Trip and Tov. Tov is basically a nerd.
Yeah.
So he's a Vulcan nerd. And that's fine, although he's too human as a Vulcan nerd.
Yeah.
That was my complaint about him, is he very much played off as just a human geek. He was a engineering geek, and that's all he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to comment on was at the end of the episode, T'Pol is meditating to prepare for her dreams and keep them on track. And Archer comes in to see how she's doing. And she asks Archer, do you dream? And he says sometimes. And then he says sometimes they're even in color. And this is something that is a little bit interesting because a lot of people in the 20th century, especially, would dream in black and white. And a lot of people would only dream in black and white. And this is, and I'm the opposite. I never dream in black and white. I always dream in color.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my wife dreamed in black and white when she was alive. And so this is a bit revelatory of the authors of this episode. At least one of them must have been a black and white dreamer, or they would never think to include the line, sometimes even in color. And it turns out that this is a generational thing. And the people that dream in black and white grew up with black and white movies and television. And that screen that you would see in the physical world somehow translated subconsciously to the screen you would see in your mind when you're dreaming. And so I grew up in the generation where black and white movies were still around. I mean, they weren't the norm, but they were still around. Same with my wife. And black and white TV was the norm when I was a kid, a small one. And in my wife's case, she became a black and white dreamer. I became a color dreamer. But now color dreamers are much larger because so few young people have had that much exposure to black and white visual media.
It makes me wonder what people 200 years ago, what their experience of dreams was, like long before there was TV or movies. That's kind of
I would assume it was natural. I would assume it was color.
Yeah.
I wonder about other things like, I have periodically throughout the years have that dream of I'm in university and it's finals time and there's a class I haven't been to all semester.
Yes.
You all have that one.
But in ages past, people didn't go to university. What did they think? Did they have the dream where it's harvest time and you suddenly realize you forgot to plant the crops?
Yeah,
exactly.
Probably.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, they missed the harvest.
I'll have to ask some of my farmer parishioners, see what they have to say about that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I got to make the comment. The reason why they dreamed in black and white is because the world was in black and white back then, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, if this was 22nd century, what Archer should have said is sometimes they're even in 3D.
There you go.
Right. Sometimes they're even holograms. Now, in that same scene, the next thing she asks him is, "Are they enjoyable?" And he says, "Yes, usually." And most nights,
statistically, no. The dominant emotion in dreaming is anxiety,
which is interesting. But she says, "I envy you." So apparently, she never has enjoyable dreams, or very rarely, which is interesting given what we had seen of her previous dreams. And is it because the enjoyment is
she's repressing it,
right, and so therefore not enjoyable. Oh, okay. The emotion of enjoyment. I get that. Okay. I see what you're saying. Interesting. She envies the emotion. Very cool. All right. I think that should do it for us. Father Cory, do you have any final comments?
Just that this mind meld is going to come back next season. T'Pol is going to get some disease from it that affects her emotions.
Oh, right.
Telepathic space VD.
Yep, exactly.
60s all over again.
So they can't leave this alone. They have to use it for another analogy at a later season, next season.
True. All right. Jimmy, final thoughts?
It's just like when Dennis Miller paid for all of Charlie Manson's girls to go down to the clinic and get penicillin because of their activities.
Oh, gosh. All right. So if no more notes, then let's wrap things up there. We do want to take a moment.
Dennis Wilson.
Dennis Wilson.
Of the Beach Boys.
I was thinking Dennis Miller would have been pretty young then, but
not Dennis. Charlie Manson and his gang lived in Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys house for a while.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
And he would do things like pay for the girls to go get penicillin treatment because of all the VD, and he would let them drive around his Rolls Royce to go get food out of garbage dumpsters and things like that.
I'm going to put a content warning at the top of the episode because folks, don't listen to this episode with your kids. I should probably should have said that at the beginning. We'll go back.
Pretty low key about it.
Yeah, teenagers probably okay. Any younger than that, maybe not. Anyway, let's take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of Star Trek, including Nash C, Slow, Harrison B, Dina C, and George H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of Star Trek in all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What did you think of Enterprise's episode called Fusion? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode of Star Trek Prodigy, which comes back next week. Until then, Father Cory Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Aitken, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, just because they smile and eat chicken doesn't mean they've learned to master their emotions.